What's up, gangsters? It's been a minute since I did any of this video nonsense, and I thought it was time to finally get back to it and do one that I've been promising for a while. If you've been watching much of my channel, you know that last fall I started on a renovation that resulted in a new studio space. And some people were curious about what the new studio space was going to look like. And so I thought that I would go ahead and kind of do a little tour of that. But first, just a couple of things. So let me give you a little bit of history of what led up to me doing this. My workspace that I had before was pretty small and pretty cramped, but it wasn't terrible. Look, I know a lot of guys are basically making models in a closet, so I'm not going to be caught whining about having lack of space. But I always wanted more. I have two rules with workshops. You can never have too much space, and you can never have too much light or too much storage. So I always wanted more space, and the opportunity came about last summer for me to purchase my family farmhouse, the home that I grew up in. From my parents. And so I decided to go ahead and do that. And as part of that, I undertook a pretty major renovation project that involved about half of the house. This studio space was just part of it. I also had, that also gave me the opportunity to solve some pretty serious structural problems with this part of the house. So it was just kind of a win-win-win deal. Pretty expensive, but definitely worth it for a lot of reasons. So anyway, like I said, some of you guys seem to want to see what I've done, so that's what this video is going to be about. And I'm going to kind of break it into two parts. I'm going to go around and give you like a little tour of the overall thing, and then we'll come back and do a tool tour, which I haven't done in a while. And people seem to like that. So let me also say that what I did here was a full renovation. It actually involved adding some space to the house, so it was expensive. A lot of the things that I chose to do were kind of spendy, but they're what I wanted for my personal satisfaction. And so I'm not saying, you should do this. This is how you should make your own workspace. But what I do hope is that maybe, it'll give some of you guys some inspiration or some ideas for your own workspaces, no matter how big or how small or what your budget is, that may help you make your model making life a little happier and a little more efficient. I don't know. So anyway, enough of the blather. Let's go have a look. I'm going to attempt to get that camera off of its arm, and we'll go have a look. Okay, so I didn't really know what the best way to do this was, and it turns out that it's kind of going to be dictated by this little video camera that I use and the fact that this is the widest angle of the lens that I can get. So I'm sitting in one corner of the room and just going to kind of just pan around and show you the whole thing. So there we go. That's the 360 tour. Yeah, no, not really. Okay, so here's what happened. All right, that area right there where that desk is, and that's one of the things that I love. That's called a tanker desk. That's a genuine steel case antique. Don't know why it's called a tanker desk, but you could put a tank on top of it and it probably wouldn't collapse. Anyway, that's where my workspace used to be. My workbench was an old door set on top of a couple of filing cabinets right across there, and there was a set of shelves right behind me. And that wall extended out to about right there on the floor, and then came across all the way over here and joined up with this right here. And the door to this space was right here, and where I'm sitting was outside on a concrete pad. So you can see it was pretty major. I had to knock out that wall, add wall over there, all these big windows, new ceiling, there's a new covered patio outside. So anyway, that was the basic design that I wanted to do. And of course, in typical engine nerd fashion, I modeled all of it out in Fusion 360 before I talked to my contractor, because I wanted to, have a good idea of what I wanted and wanted him to have a good idea and so forth. So a couple of things. This is also a laundry and utility room. Redid all my plumbing, new hot water heater, all of that. New cabinetry over there. Got a slick coat hanger thing here that I built. That is one of my little projects that I did. All new electrical service I had to do for the entire house, because this house is 70 years old, at least parts of it. This part that I'm sitting in right now was initially a garage, and the house was like 1,000 square feet. That was built in the mid-50s by my dad and his dad, and all out of concrete. So like all of those walls all the way around, that's all concrete ceiling. So that was a lot of fun for my contractors. But it is what it is. The house got added onto a couple of times over the years as all of us kids came along, and so me adding this on is kind of version 4.0. So anyway, that's what the space looks like. And what I wanted to do, I had some goals. One thing that I wanted to do, you can see this right here. This is my 3-wheel mountain bike. I wanted to have enough space to bring it in and park it out of the weather over the winter, and even use a roller maybe to ride indoors. I wanted to reorganize all of that into the room so that it was more efficient, more effective. Obviously, though, the number one thing that I wanted to do was create a new studio workspace. And so this is what I've got going on here. These are 1 3/4 maple butcher block bench tops I got from a place called Global Industrial Supply, and you can get these things up to 14 feet long. These are a couple of 10-foot sections, this one going this way, that one going across the end over there, and then that's cut from a 6-foot section over there. I just love the way they look. They're obviously super heavy and super durable, way heavier than anything we really need for model making, but I had to pick a benchtop material, and this was actually surprisingly pretty cost effective. All of this benchtop material was about $1,800 in total. Some of my friends who have seen pictures of this, who have been here, have given me a little bit of a hard time for going with coffee house Starbucks style, because I went with all this industrial pipe fitting. You can see what's going on there. This is just a 2-inch black pipe leg and a floor flange, and then there's another floor flange underneath here that supports that thing. Plenty strong enough, doesn't even have to be bolted to the floor. It is bolted to the bottom of the bench top. But it's, if you like the look, it's a pretty inexpensive and obviously very sturdy way to get some bench legs. Now, obviously, I've got a love affair with industrial black pipe because this monstrosity, I wanted some adjustable shelves for supplies and things. This obviously is a lot of the models that I've built over the last 5 years. They're not supposed to stay there. They're just kind of there temporarily because I don't have a display case yet. That's coming. But at any rate, I wanted a sturdy, adjustable set of shelves that I could put books and anything on. And so I couldn't really find anything that I liked that I could just purchase off the shelf. So once again, yes, black pipe. These fittings are actually, I forget the name of the company that makes them, but they're for making handrails. Like if you need to make a handrail that bolts to the outside of a building, these are the fittings that you do that with. And they come in 3 or 4 different sizes that are made for use with black iron pipe. So that worked out pretty good, but it was not cheap. This whole shelf unit, yeah, it ended up being kind of a boondoggle. Part of the reason is because those boards are solid pecan, which is my favorite wood, and I wanted to use some of that. Yeah, it wasn't cheap. I've got about 500 bucks in that whole shelf thing there. But hey, it's the only one like it in the whole world. One of the things that I also wanted to do was kind of bring some wood texture from the outside to the inside. That wall there, that's a really neat product. That's from a company called Lux Wall, which is pretty cool. They're in Austin, Texas. And it's a floor wall. They have all kinds of different floor type materials or wood type materials that you would normally think of as being on a floor, but they're cut really thin and they're not necessarily hard enough wood for a floor. And it comes with a double-sided adhesive tape, like 3M double-sided tape, and so you just basically just cut them to length and stick them up there. It's a really good system, not as easy as it sounds, but it is pretty cool. And that double sticky tape, yeah, they're not ever coming off of there. So obviously, since we're pointed this direction, one of the things that I wanted to do was be able to have a permanent sort of setup for photography. And so that's what I've got going on here. I'm still kind of dialing this in. I don't know if this is going to be permanent or not, but these lights are my Yongnuo YN 600Ls. They're about 4,500 lumens each. And it takes both of those at full blast to allow me to shoot at reasonable shutter speeds and like f/16, which is, you know, not bad for a scale model. I can get most of it in focus at an f-stop like that. So I don't know, this is working okay. I got some bits and pieces that I found on Amazon to be able to clamp those lights on there. And yeah, you know, I don't know. We'll see how it ultimately ends up working out. But right now, it's okay. These Magic Arms are, I think they're from Small Rig, and they obviously can support the weight of the lights. But they're kind of a handful when you go to adjust them, because the second you loosen one of these knobs, it just turns into a piece of spaghetti. And so getting it to the exact right orientation can be a little bit of a challenge, especially, you know, with my physical condition being what it is. All right, obviously another thing that I needed to have was space for my spray booth. So that's what's going on there. And you can see that I have vented it right outside, and that's just with a standard dryer vent and a flapper vent on the outside. One thing that I had to do, though, because this thing was deeper than I realized, was I had to rebuild or redo the duct going out the back of it. So you can see this Pash, whatever, however the heck you pronounce that. This is their 22-inch wide booth. And it's got a really powerful fan. It's about 250 CFM, and it works good, but normally the duct is just sticking straight out the back right here, which meant that it was basically stabbing right into the wall. That obviously wasn't going to work. So I whipped up this sort of right angle adapter thing in Fusion 360, sent it off to my buddy John Geigel at Masterpiece Models, and he printed that up on his FDM machine. So that works a lot better. Okay, now in conjunction with my spray booth, I needed a good air supply, and I decided to upgrade. So this is the California Air Tools, one of their quiet compressors. They make a whole line of them. I did really good on this because they had like a scratch and dent page on their website. And I got this thing is normally like 250 bucks. I got it for 200. It's got that's a 5-gallon aluminum tank, so it'll hold plenty of air. This is also still kind of getting dialed in. What I wanted was to be able to run shop air for things like this blower, or to air up bike tires or whatever, and run airbrush air. So I've got all this plumbing, kind of a crazy looking contraption there, perfect for Rube Goldberg, right? Anyway, so this is just the regulator and gauge off of my old compressor, and so I can run, 10 or 12 psi out of that while still having 70 or 90 or whatever I need on the other side. but it's, you know, I honestly have way too many connections here and it's a little bit leaky, so I can't leave it on because it comes on all the time. And even though it is relatively quiet, I mean, that's not bad at all. You know, to be able to even talk and be able to be heard over the noise of a compressor like this is pretty impressive. But I would say that it's about the same volume as my old compressor, so I didn't really gain anything there. But what I did gain is capacity, because I just turn it on whenever I'm ready to airbrush, and it runs, you know, for as long as it takes to pump itself up, which is a few minutes, and then pretty much doesn't have to come on again during a typical spray session. So not too bad. Okay, so that's the main thing there. Now, if the camera will adjust, I'll give you a view of the whole workspace. What I also wanted to do was have an area that was kind of exclusive to painting. So that's what this area is. I can mix, I can paint, I can do whatever. And what this is this is a 1/8 inch thick sheet of ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. This is the same stuff that I'm always harping on about for people to use as cutting boards for photo etch instead of using like a ceramic tile or something equally silly that destroys knife blades. This is the same stuff that the, you know, like your typical cutting board that you buy at Walmart is made out of. It's a food grade material because it's basically, this is the most durable and chemically inert plastic that you can get, next to Teflon. Teflon is super expensive and really not that hard, and so this stuff is what people use for industrial and food grade applications. So anyway, it's great. I could literally dump lacquer paint on here and mix it and then wipe it off with lacquer thinner, and you'd never know, because literally no chemical can attack this. So I've got that going on. You can see I've got my paint carousels here. I've got another one of them over here, and this is kind of a thing that I wanted to do. I obviously did not want to have wall racks because I decided I wanted windows instead. So I needed some paint storage, and one thing that I like is being able to have paint right at my fingertips. So I designed these carousels, and this is a thing that you can buy now from John at Masterpiece Models. You know, he's carrying some of like the jigs that I designed. You can see I got a stack of them over there by that little cabinet. And so this is another laser cut acrylic product that you assemble yourself. It's a little bit expensive. This is about 60 bucks. And I recognize that this is really for people who have a lot of benchtop space and or just don't want to do the wall rack thing. But I like it because I've got, you know, don't have to reach very far. Now, one of the unintended consequences of my design, as you can see, is that I am getting a thermonuclear blast of late morning sun right now. And so all of my paints are pretty warm, and I'm gonna have to do something about that. I'm getting a lot more sun in here than I realized that I was going to, but that's okay, because what I'm probably gonna end up doing is just planting a tree right out there. That will be the perfect solution, because I really don't want to lose the view. I don't want to do blinds or any other kind of window treatment. All right, so just moving on around the bench, then this is my workspace. You can see where I'm doing, you know, just basically most of my stuff. Hang on a second. I've got somebody driving up here, so I'm going to have to pause. Okay, so here we go again. Anyway, so one thing I wanted to show you, because I get a lot of guys asking about lighting. You can see I've got a couple of these Neatfi task lamps. They're LED. They are really good. I like them a lot. They replaced my 3-tube fluorescent that I used for years that was pretty good also, but these are brighter. They don't give you any color adjustment, and they're a little bit cool, but overall they work really well. You can see behind here, I've got all of these gizmos. This is something I get asked about a lot. This is what this camera that I'm holding was attached to. This is just a cheapo microphone arm, and this is just a Joby ball head, clips to the bottom of the camera, and then these are some gizmos from Small Rig that I got to be able to attach it to the end here. And at the time, I couldn't find one that had a stub sticking out that this piece here could screw into. So, because it's got a 1/4-20 thread in the bottom of it, which is the standard thing for like tripods and stuff. So I just got a 1/4-20 bolt, chopped the head of it off, and clamped it right there in that thing. So that works pretty good. Now this other thing here, this other arm, again, this is still getting dialed in. This is a shorter one that I just bought, but it's the same thing, and it came with all of this on the back of it, and it's for attaching an iPad. And the reason that I'm doing this is because this is part of this new thing that I'm doing on Patreon that I haven't told you guys about on video yet, because it's still very much in its infancy, but I'm doing a Saturday morning live open Q&A thing, 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time each Saturday. And it's basically just, whatever you want to talk about or ask about as far as model making goes. But one Saturday a month is going to be fully dedicated to Fusion 360. And we'll do more if there's demand for it. Because I know a lot of guys want to learn how to use it for, so they get into 3D printing. So anyway, that's the bench space. And you can see it extends all the way down there. So I have a second space. If I want to run another project, I can do that over there. All right, and then down there at the end, got a little bit of tool storage. This is one of my favorite things. That is a vintage machinist toolbox that I scored on eBay that I love. And then obviously there's the door. All right, so you can see lots of cabinetry. These little Bisley cabinets, not cheap. Those are about $300 a piece by the time you add the rolling wheelbase on the bottom of them. But they're really good. You can get them with a couple of different drawer sizes. You can see this one is the one where it's got the mixture of small and large drawers. But I really, really like these. They're great for storing model making supplies, and we'll get into those. We'll go through those drawers and I'll show you kind of what's going on there. Something else that I had to have, I have to point out that speaker back there in the back, and that one over there, right there next to my DeWalt cordless drill. Those are Sonos wireless speakers. And let me tell you something, if you want great sound in any part of your house and you want it to be on your Wi-Fi network, Sonos invented the Wi-Fi speaker, basically, and these things are great. They're like $180 for each speaker, but you get a pair of them and you get amazing stereo sound. I know it sounds like I'm getting paid to advertise for these guys, but it's just phenomenal. I can play stupid loud rock and roll, when I have the house to myself, and love that. That's another thing that I wanted to accomplish. I wanted more light, I wanted more space, I wanted more sound, and I got all of it. So anyway, that's the whole room tour. And now that I've kind of shown you the overview, we'll come back in another segment and kind of take a look at what's in all of these crazy drawers and see what's up with the tool tour. Okay, so there you go. The grand tour of the newly updated headquarters of Rube Goldberg Enterprises out here at El Rancho, Pattison. And I have to apologize because when I went through and did the editing on that, I realized just how bad my camera work is. I tried to hold the thing steady, but yeah, it was just, total fail. So I apologize for that, and for all of you guys who are seasick right now if you actually watched all of that. I thought about doing it again, but the truth is it's just not going to get any better unless I get one of those, gimbaled Steadicam type gizmos, and that's just not happening, at least not right now. So anyway, if you did watch the whole thing, I definitely appreciate it, and stay tuned for part 2, which will be the tool tour coming up. As always, much love.